Hi, I'm Karen. Welcome to my kitchen. Are you struggling to get your family to eat their veggies? Well, if you are, then stick with me because on today's show, I'm going to share with you some simple recipes they are sure to love.
Kick it.
For our first dish today, we are taking a trip to the Mediterranean with a very delicious, very simple and traditional hummus. If you haven't had hummus before, it is just a very tasty dip that is based with chickpeas. And there are so many things I like about this. But let's get started with the recipe. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add one can of chickpeas, and I've drained them. I like to use low sodium chickpeas because I like to add the salt myself, so I know exactly how much I'm putting in there. I'm just going to put these in the blender. This is such a simple recipe. I have reserved some of the liquid from the can of chickpeas because sometimes I like my hummus to be a little thinner, or you might like it a little thicker. All of that is going to depend on how much liquid you put in. So I like to keep some of that from the can of chickpeas. Now to this I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of chopped garlic. And you can use fresh garlic. I like the can that's in the jar because they've already done the work for me. And we are so busy these days. You know, we've got to save time and energy when we can. Now to that I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of dried oregano. You can use fresh oregano, it's delicious. If you do, use about 3 times the amount. Dried is much more concentrated. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of olive oil, extra virgin, and you want to get a nice good quality olive oil for this. It will change the flavor. We're almost done. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. Now traditionally hummus is made with tahini, which is a sesame paste. It can be a little expensive and it can be tough to find, so I like to use sesame oil. Just a little bit does the trick for me. You can also omit it if you would like. And I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of ground cumin. It gives it that nice kind of smoky flavor. Pop it up on here. To that, I'm going to add the juice of 1 lemon. I like it to have a nice lemony flavor, but if you don't like the citrus that much, you can just add the juice of half a lemon. You really want to make this your own. Now, one thing that I really love about hummus is that kids like it. And although it's typically something you'll have at a party or maybe at a restaurant, I serve it as my side dish for my vegetable at dinner all the time because my daughter loves this. And sometimes she struggles with wanting to eat, peas or broccoli, but I know she will always eat hummus. So I always have a can of chickpeas in the cupboard. I'm going to bring this back down. I'm not quite tall enough to use the little squeezer with it up there. There we go. I like this too because it's a workout. Get my upper body strength going. Another great thing about hummus is that you can change it up a lot. If you like sun-dried tomatoes, if you blend a few of them in there with this, it's incredible. Or even some black olives to give it a different flavor, or a little extra roasted garlic. All of those change it up completely, and it's so delicious. Whoa, that was juicy. Now here's where the reserved liquid from your can of chickpeas comes into play. When I start to blend it, the blender gets stuck a little bit, so you really need to add a little more moisture. You can use regular water if you'd like. That's absolutely fine. This is going to make a lot of noise. I'm gonna give it a little taste because I wanna know how much salt I need to add into there. It's really good, but it does need some salt. I'm gonna give it a nice pinch, and maybe a pinch and a half. That is it. That is how easy this is to make. I like to serve it in a fancy platter or dish. But something I also like to do sometimes is to put it in a piping bag, and if I want to get really fancy, I can make it into fun little shapes on the dish and just really kind of liven it up. Whoa! There you go. Now you can serve this with soft pita bread. I like to serve it with vegetables and chips. And like I said, this is a great side dish for dinner. But when you want to get fancy, look at that. Now does that not look like something you'd want to munch on at a party? Make sure you give this a try. I know you're going to enjoy it as much as I do. So we are continuing our vegetable adventure today, and we are going to make one of my favorite soups. It's a cream of cauliflower soup. It's so easy to make, but it's incredibly flavorful, even though it doesn't have a lot of ingredients. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of bacon. Bacon makes everything taste so much better. Now the good thing is I'm only going to use 2 strips, so it's not going to have all of that fat that you usually associate with bacon. So I've got my pot here and it's getting warm. I'm just going to put this bacon, it's 2 strips that I have chopped into little pieces. I'm going to dump it in there and render that down into nice crispy little chunks that I'm eventually going to use to garnish this. And that should start sizzling soon. Get off. Now while that's cooking, I'm going to cut up my cauliflower. And it's funny because cauliflower isn't a super popular vegetable. It's not something you think, oh man, I could go for some cauliflower. But trust me, after you have the soup, that's all gonna change. It comes in a head, and you have to do a little work to get it cleaned off. Maybe a lot of work. Get all the green off as much as we can. As much as we can. And it will get a little messy, so I have my little junk bowl here. Let me just go ahead and cut it in half. And it does tend to fly, so make sure you've got a lot of space if you're doing this. So see there's a little center core, and it will have some of that green attached to it. So you can just chop that off, and then the green comes off pretty easily. Or sometimes you can just pull it right off. And I will use the whole head of cauliflower for this. And it really doesn't matter the size because you can adjust the thickness of the soup very, very easily. Give my bacon a little stir. This is going to render off about a tablespoon of that delicious bacon fat. Actually, probably not even a tablespoon. Maybe half a tablespoon. But it's going to add so much flavor and none of the guilt. A bit, and I'm going to chop this cauliflower up into as small pieces as I can, just because the smaller the pieces are, the quicker it's going to cook. And I like to do things that are quick and easy. Don't forget about your bacon, you don't want it to burn on you. You really have to multitask here. So even if you like your bacon a little wiggly, you really want to make sure you cook it till it's nice and crisp. Because you don't really want wiggly bacon on top of your soup. Well, maybe you do. It's up to you. That's almost ready. But I'm getting just a little bit of bacon fat, not too much. And those are getting nice and crispy for me. Oh, got a couple big chunks here. I want to make sure they're all nice and small. I think that's probably good. Okay, so my bacon is ready. I'm just going to take a little slotted spoon and pull it out and set it here on a paper towel for it to drain. Look at how nice and brown and crispy that bacon is. And it smells so good. So what I've got left is just probably under a tablespoon of the bacon grease. And now what I'm going to put in that is half of an onion that I've chopped, and it's a pretty small dice. And I'm going to let that cook until it's nice and translucent in that bacon fat. Ooh, sounds good. Just over here. This can get very messy. And it's on a medium-high right now. So you really want to keep them moving so that your onions don't burn. You don't want any char flavor in this soup. So once that you see that your onions have gotten nice and soft and they start to become a little translucent, you're ready to put your cauliflower pieces in. You're just going to put them in right on top of those onions. I wish you were here smelling this because it smells so delicious. Oh, a piece of green. You're going to get as much of that as you can in there. And it will fly everywhere. I recently found out my dog likes cauliflower because I was chopping it and it went flying across the counter. And here she comes, and I'm thinking she's going to leave it, but she scarfed all of it, licked the floor. So I guess that's good. It's healthy for her. I wish I could get my daughter to like it as much raw, but she likes this, so. Now I'm just going to cook the cauliflower in with the onions just for 2 or 3 minutes just to get them started. And then I'm going to add some chicken stock. And we're almost done. There are so few ingredients in this, and it's so delicious. And people are really starting to use cauliflower a lot more lately. I've seen cauliflower puree where they use it instead of mashed potatoes. And recently I tried cauliflower rice. And you just get the raw cauliflower and you grate it up and then steam it. And it looks like rice. It doesn't have quite the right texture of rice, but it looks like it. And if you mix it in with beans and stir fry and whatnot, you can bake it pretty well. And it's a lot healthier for you. You gotta get these veggies in whenever you can. It's so important. So those have been going for about 3 minutes, and I'm just going to add some chicken stock. And depending on the size of the cauliflower that you have will determine how much chicken stock you have, that you add into there. So I've got 3 cups here. I might not use it all because this cauliflower was a little smaller. But you want to get it to where it's just about covering the cauliflower. Maybe a little bit more. You can always add a little more a little later if your soup is too thick. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this to a boil and wait for my cauliflower to get nice and soft. I'm going to go ahead and turn it up to high and just wait a few minutes. So our cauliflower has been cooking in the broth for about 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to take this lid off. And you can see that it's just nice and tender, but the fork just goes right through it so you know it's done. Now, a lot of the water has been absorbed and is kind of cooked off with steam, so I might need to add some more of the chicken stock. So I'm going to pull that off the hot burner and let it cool down just a little bit. Give that just a second. I'm going to clear off my cutting board. And you see, now I'm going to use my immersion blender, and I'm going to just blend all of that yummy cauliflower into that nice silky cream. And I love these. If you don't have one, I would recommend it because it's so much easier than taking this stuff and putting it in a blender and transporting it. It's hot. You do have to be careful though. So I'm going to start it on low. It might splash, so kind of back away at first. Oopsie. It helps if you give the soup a little angle. thing, you want to make sure when you're doing it, if you have little ones, they're not in the area because it will, as you can see, splatter all over the place and it's really hot. Okay, so once you have the cauliflower all nice and blended up, you're going to add a little bit of cheese. I have only 1/4 cup of cheese, and this is a Mexican blend, which I like because it has some cheddar and some sharp flavors in it. You can choose whatever kind of cheese you like. Just go with it. Go ahead and sprinkle it on top. So even though there's some bacon and there's some cheese in there, the amounts are so small that it's really not going to add too much for the calories. This is going to make about 4 nice-sized bowls of soup that have under 300 calories each, and it's really going to fill you up. Mix that all in. All right. Use this. So you can see this is a nice, thick, rich soup. If you'd like it a little thinner than that, if that's too hearty for you, just add some of the chicken stock. But other than that, we are done with this. So now I'm going to put it into a nice serving bowl and give it a try. So you can see just how thick and rich and creamy and delicious this soup is. Now I'm going to take that bacon that we rendered off earlier and just top it off. And you really get that flavor when you taste, whoa, when you taste the soup. I'm throwing bacon everywhere. It's a bacon festival. So there you have it. Cream of cauliflower soup. This is so delicious. You've got to give this one a try. So we are on the last step of our vegetable voyage, and we are going to make spinach burgers. I'm sure you've heard of veggie burgers and black bean burgers. Well, these are going to be made out of spinach, which is great because they're loaded with iron and they have a lot of fiber, and they take no time to make. Now I'm starting out with a 16-ounce package of frozen spinach, and I've thawed that out, and then I've really kind of squeezed the rest of the water out. And what you need to do is you just pick it up and just like make a real tight fist, and you will be amazed at how much water comes out. And you're going to end up, it's clumped together, so you're going to end up with like a piece of spinach this big. Well, when you're done getting all the water out, just take your little fingers and separate it all out. So it's nice and fluffy again. All right, so to that I'm going to add 1/2 cup of shredded cheese. This is just a mixed blend. Gouda is a really good option if you have it. Sharp, cheddar cheese, jack cheese, anything you want. It's just going to enrich that flavor. There we go. I'm going to add 1/4 cup of onions, and I chop them really small. And the reason I'm doing that is because these don't cook very long. So you want to really make sure that the onions are smaller, so in that short amount of time, they'll cook all the way through. I'm using my fingers a lot here. So to this, I'm going to add 3/4 cup of breadcrumbs. You can use plain breadcrumbs, you can use Italian seasoned breadcrumbs, whatever you like. Sprinkle those in on top. Go. And the only seasoning really that I'm going to use is 1 teaspoon of garlic salt. You can use garlic powder and then some salt. This is just all combined together, one step, a little easier. So 1 teaspoon. And give that a little stir. Whoa! Try to keep most of it in the bowl. You get bigger burgers that way. And now for my liquid, I'm going to add 2 egg whites and 1 whole egg. So I've got 2 egg whites already separated in there with my little tiny whisk. Whoa! 1 more egg. Toss that in the sink. And then just kind of mix them up. I always like to kind of pre-mix my eggs just so that it's a nice uniform mixture with the rest of the ingredients. So I have to hide this little whisk from my daughter because she tries to take it as a toy because it is very cute. All right, so those are done. I'm just going to pour them in. Okay. Mix it all up, and once I get it kind of wet, I'm gonna just use my hands for the rest. This is a little bit of a messy recipe. But you know what? Sometimes it's just more fun to get your hands in it. Your hands are the best cooking tools. Unless you're stirring boiling soup, then hands are bad. Okay. So speaking of hands, and it feels almost like the texture or consistency of ground beef. So it's not real gooey, as you can see, even though the eggs are in there. You really do need those eggs though to bind the spinach and the rest of the ingredients. The cheese helps and the breadcrumbs help, but the eggs really are like food glue. So it all looks like it's pretty well incorporated. Oh, there's a little chunk. You want to make sure it's as uniform as possible. There we go. And now we're just going to shape some burgers. You can make them into little tiny sliders if you want. I'm going to use, typically I get about 5 burgers out of these, but today I have bigger buns. So I'm going to make 4 bigger burgers for my bigger burger buns. I couldn't help myself. So just look at your mixture and just kind of use your hands. You can kind of make a little guidelines for yourself and then start shaping. Ooh, while I'm doing that, I'm going to turn my, my pan on. And I'm going to put it on medium-high. Okay. Now these are only going to cook for about 4 to 6 minutes per side, so that's why you really wanted to cut up those onions nice and small. There you go. I think that looks about the size of the buns. And the thinner you make them, the faster they'll cook. And then if you end up with a big one at the end, you can always mash some of the spinach onto the other ones. Or you can just have a big burger. Okay. Got a little left. We're going to add it to this guy. It's a little small. I'm going to give my hands a quick wash. Now I'm just going to coat a frying pan, a nonstick frying pan, with some vegetable cooking spray. This one's olive oil. You can use coconut cooking spray or regular, whatever you like, or you can just put a little bit of oil in there. You don't want to put too much though because we're trying to be healthy. Give it a little shake. Okay, feels like it's getting warm. Turn it up just a bit. Ooh, there we go. Now these will shrink up a little bit, but not nearly as much as a burger does. And they also won't get that little rounded effect. Which, by the way, if you're cooking burgers and you want to, grill them or fry them, and they always kind of end up like little balls, make a little dent on either side. And when that fills up, there'll be a nice flat burger when you're done. For the most part, we're done. While these get fried up, I'm just going to clear off this space and get my stuff to dress up the burgers. Okay, so it looks like these are about done. Well, they are done. And they're hot. They've had about 4 minutes per side, and you can see some of this dark spot. That's actually just the cheese, so don't worry, don't think that your spinach is burning. The cheese will burn a little bit, but that kind of gives it a nice little smoky flavor too. And there we have our burgers. And like I said, you can just make little ones and have sliders and eat them, serve them with some hummus for a nice kind of vegetable plate, or you can make them into an actual hamburger that you would eat. My favorite way to make them is very, very simple. I just like to put a little bit of regular mayonnaise. There's nothing special in this, it's not spiced up or anything. And I just put a little bit, again, I'm trying to be healthy. A little bit on each side. Okay, let's move this guy. We're going to use him. And then a nice red tomato. Oop, that's the top. Put that on there. I always like a little bit of salt on my tomatoes. And apparently if you're from the South, you probably like a little pepper on them too. Okay. Let me get this guy on here on top. Put a little lid on them. And that, my friends, is a delicious spinach burger. I hope you like it as much as I do. Thank you so much for watching my Very Veggie show today. These dishes are sure to make veggie lovers out of everyone in your family. For these and other recipes, check us out on cox11.com. Don't forget to like me on Facebook at Karen is Cooking from the Heart. Oh, check out my new website at cookingfromtheheart.tv. And remember, you don't have to be a trained cook or chef to make healthy, veggie-licious meals for your family. You just gotta cook from the heart.
Are you struggling to get your family to eat their veggies? Are you struggling to get your family to eat the veggies? Bleh.
Second sticks, A.B. Martin.
And it's on him.
A.B. Martin.
So there you have it, cream of car. Don't just put like tomato on my face. Everything's gotten smaller.
Good
The
now.
camera's
Josh.
smaller, the little thing is smaller.
Looks good.
A.B. Mark.
Serve.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you so much for watching my Very Veggie start over again.